Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I am going to be going through my 2025 reading wrapped. So I'm very excited. I started a couple months ago making a little video diary of the books that I read each month to keep track for myself and to just review the books and my thoughts about them. So I'm going to be doing that for all of 2025. So come join me. All right, so I read 58 books total in 2025. I feel like it was really a great year of reading for me. I was able to get back in the swing of reading and just fell in love with it. Obviously, I kept it up all year. There was definitely some ebbs and flows through the different months, but overall I'm very, very happy with the amount of books I read in 2025. I had set a goal on Storygraph where I track my books and my TBR and things like that, and I way surpassed the goal that I had set for the year, so I'm very happy with 58 books. So just some fun little tidbits that my Storygraph let me know before we get into my favorite books of the year. The shortest it took me to finish a book was only 2 days, and that was The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. That book I flew through. I had never read any of her books before this past year, and I really enjoy the way she writes. I find them very easy to get through because, one, they're a mystery, so I want to find out what's happening and the ending. And two, the ones that I've read, at least, the characters, like the perspectives switch each chapter to a different character. So that really kept me intrigued because you don't know like who it might be, who might be suspicious. So you like are just flying through because you want to figure out the rest. So that was the shortest book that I read, only 2 days. And then it let me know the longest it took me to read a book was 208 days. And that was The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. So if you know anything about this book, you know that it should definitely not have taken me that long to finish. The Wild Robot is a children's book. That's actually a series as well. The reason that it took me this long to read this book is because I was reading it with my husband. He is a big fan of The Iron Giant, and I had heard about The Wild Robot and I wanted to read it over the summer before I started working at a new school to see if I might want to read it with my students. So because I knew my husband might be interested in it, I wanted to read it with him. So we started a little like read aloud before bed situation where I would read like a chapter or two before we went to bed, but we just were not able to keep consistent with it, obviously. You know, there was times where we put it down and didn't pick it back up for a couple of months. But I really did love this book. It just took us a very long time to finish because we were not sticking to our reading a chapter every night that we had set out to do. But it was so beautiful, so sweet. I love the story. I definitely will read it with my students, but the movie was such a disappointment. We watched the movie after we finished it and it did not follow the plot of the book at all. So we were so disappointed because we loved the book. So we were sad that it had a different storyline, the movie did. But I did love this book, even though it took me so long to read. But, you know, just let that be validating to you. If you're a slow reader, if you're someone who only reads a couple books a year, that's okay. That's what we're here to do, you know? I'm not judging anyone. Sometimes you just put a book down and don't pick it back up for a while, and there's no particular reason. It's not because you didn't like it, but whatever. I'm not judging anyone's reading style. I believe audiobooks are reading, so that was the longest that it took me to finish a book was like pretty much the whole year. So I'm not here to judge anyone's reading style or shame anyone for reading slowly. I had 3 top authors for the year, and that was Rebecca Yarros, Kristen Hanna, and Taylor Jenkins Reid. All 3 of those authors, I read 3 books from them. So they were my top authors that Storygraph let me know I read their books the most in 2025. I was also surprised that Lucy Foley wasn't on there. I guess I only read 2 of her books, but I really loved all those authors this year. Obviously, Rebecca Yarros, I read 3 of her books that are all in a series. Kristen Hanna, the first one that I read from her was The Women. That was actually the first book I read in 2025, and I just fell in love with her writing style. So after I read that one, I picked up 2 more throughout the year. And then Taylor Jenkins Reid, she was kind of a sneaky one. I feel like a lot of her books were recommended to me. So I guess I ended up reading 3 throughout the year. Not mad about it. Loved all those ladies. So those are my top authors for the year. Okay, now I'm going to go through my top favorite books out of different genres. I couldn't narrow it down to just like a top 3 of my favorite books because I read so many different types of books, so it's hard to really compare a lot of them. So I just picked one of my favorites for different genres, like the top one in that category. So I'm just going to go through and share the different books from each genre and then just share a little bit of why I loved it. So the first category is fiction, and for the fiction category, I picked Before the Coffee Gets Cold. Again, this was one of the first books that I read in 2025, and I honestly hadn't heard that much about it. I know it's a very popular book, but I didn't know what the story was about, and I think it was just available at my library, so I picked it up because I knew that it was popular. And I loved it so much. It's a magical realism fiction book, so I guess it might also fit into like a different type of like category as well, but the story was just really beautiful. It takes place in a cafe, and if you follow certain rules, you're able to travel back in time, but it's not in such a way where people are traveling back to like change the past or anything like that. They are just able to go back in the past and have a conversation with someone at the cafe. So it's pretty much a series of different characters, like choosing someone to have a conversation with. And it's just really beautiful. It's not like hard to understand the time traveling piece at all, because I know sometimes that can get confusing, but it's just really simple and really profound. Obviously, people choose to like have conversations with people who have passed on or people who are no longer in their lives for certain reasons. So it's really profound and really thought-provoking, and this like story definitely stuck with me. And some of the conversations that took place just really left me very moved. So I really loved this one, and I would recommend reading it. It's not too long at all, and it's like, even though it deals with some sort of heavy topics, it does so in a way that's very like light. It wasn't leaving me feeling like sad and depressed after reading it, so it was really unique in that way. All right, the next category is nonfiction, and my top nonfiction book for 2025 is Why Fish Don't Exist. My mom actually recommended me this book, and she had gifted it to my husband because she really wanted him to read it a couple of like holidays ago when it was popular. I think she did it with her book club, so she really wanted us to read it and passed it along. And I didn't get the chance to pick it up until 2025, but I am so glad that I did. It definitely started out a little bit slow for me. It starts a little bit science heavy, and I don't really know that much about the science world, but it's following the life of a specific scientist and what he was like doing in the early days of like universities and discoveries. Like he was discovering a lot of different species and naming them and things like that. So I wasn't particularly interested at first, and I was kind of confused why my mom recommended it to me, because I was like, I don't really like science that much or know that much about animals. So I was like confused why she had recommended it. But then it turns into sort of a memoir slash biography after the sciencey beginning, and again, it was just really profound. It talked about certain things that I was unaware, like in American history. So it was really eye-opening and really profound, and also just left me with a lot to think about. So I would recommend reading this one as well. My top romance book that I picked from what I read in 2025 was actually Outlander. This one I had a hard time with because I do read a lot of romance books, but there are a lot of really beach read, like easy Hallmarky storyline romances. So none of them like stood out amongst the rest. They're all kind of like on the same bar for me. The reason that I chose Outlander was because I flew through the book, and if you know Outlander, it's like 800 pages. So I feel like the fact that I flew through it was really just a testament to how intrigued I was in the love story and wanting to find out more about what happened with the couple in the story. So I put this one as my top romance. I feel like people might not consider it a romance because it's also a fantasy book that deals with like traveling back in time, and the main character is trying to find her way back to her modern life. But it does have a very strong romance throughout the story that was just really interesting and different than the sort of like little beach reads that I normally read for romance. So I think that's why it stood out to me, and that's why I picked it as my top romance for the year. Next category is historical fiction, and the top book that I chose from 2025 was The Four Winds. Might not come as a surprise because I shared that Kristen Hanna was one of my top authors for the year, and her books are all historical fiction stories. But this one in particular just really stuck with me. Again, I didn't really know much about the Dust Bowl and what was happening in California during the Great Depression with people who migrated there from different southern states that were dealing with the Dust Bowl. So it was really intriguing and really interesting to me to be learning about that. At the same time, I just fell so in love with the characters, and just really had such a like open heart for them and wishing them the best and trying to like cheer them on their journey as you're following them along. I am not even kidding. When I finished this book, I probably spent 40 plus minutes explaining the entire plot to my husband because I was so moved by it and just like had to share all of my thoughts about the book. I literally like went through every single detail with him, but that's just how much it like just opened my world. I feel like Kristen Hanna has a really unique way of writing very sad stories, but in a way that keeps you wanting to read them, and not in a way where you like need to put it down because it's too much, but in a way where you are just cheering on the characters and hoping that they make it through the situations that they're dealing with. And because it's historical fiction, you're also like learning about the period in time that these characters are existing. So it was just really eye-opening to me. This one is my top historical fiction from 2025, but also probably will be in my top books that I've ever read, because I just really love the story so much, and I feel like there's just so much to talk about and unpack from it that I'll be thinking about it for a long time. The next category is fantasy, and for my top fantasy book of the year, I chose Fourth Wing. This also probably doesn't come as a surprise to anyone who's heard me talk about this book series. It is the first romantasy series that I have tried out, and I loved it. I definitely get the hype now. It was just great. I don't know what else to say. The world building was really easy for me to understand, so I didn't feel like I was spending too much mental energy trying to like unpack the different things about the world, because fantasy is often very intimidating to me because I feel like I have to learn so many new things and words and just the whole different world. But this one did a really good job of making it easy, because you're following the main character who is going to war college. It's like her first year there, so she's also like learning things along the way. So I feel like it didn't have to do too much like narration and background in order to get into it, because you're following someone who's like also finding her way and learning about the world around her. And it also just has a very spicy romance in it, which I loved, and I would recommend this to anyone who hasn't tried fantasy or romantasy, because I really enjoyed it, and I will definitely try some more series in the future, because I definitely understand the hype now of the romantasy books. The next category that I chose was queer or LGBTQ. I don't really know that this is a book genre, but I read a lot of books that dealt with queer identities or queer romances, so I felt like I wanted to pick my favorite from 2025, and that was Atmosphere. I just talked about this in one of my last videos because I just read it. Just finished it, but it was really beautiful. It's not like the most, you know, like the characters aren't out in their daily lives, so it's not the most like happy queer love story, but I just really fell in love with the characters and their story. And there's just something about putting your partner first and choosing them over like the safety of your job and different things and being outed, that is just really beautiful and like a testament of how strong their relationship is. So although it's a little bit sad, it was just really moving and really lovely. I think it was done in a really good way. I know there's a lot of queer romances that end in like death or just like end in the characters having to break up because of the situations, but this one didn't have like a traumatic storyline. It just happened to like be happening in a period of time where it wasn't really socially acceptable to be out. But the two women are just really both such strong characters, and their romance was just really wholesome and something that I love to read. So Atmosphere was my top queer book of the year. The last category that I chose my top book for 2025 in was mystery. And for that, I chose Wrong Place, Wrong Time. I read a lot of mysteries this year, and a lot of them I really liked. I definitely learned that I liked mystery this year. I'm not really good with like blood or horror or scary things, so I've sort of shied away from mystery in the past. But I think the Lucy Foley books, like I said, really got me into mystery books, like, and just the entire genre in general, because I realized, number one, I feel like they're less creepy to read about, and like rather than seeing like a horror movie, and two, they are just such quick reads for me because I get so invested in wanting to know how it ends or who the suspects are, that I just read them really quickly and really enjoy reading them. because I want to know the ending. So I definitely got into mystery a lot in 2025, but I loved Wrong Place, Wrong Time. It deals with a character who witnesses her son murder somebody, and then she gets stuck in a time loop from there where she's going back in time and she's having to like figure out what like the past wants her to see and why her son did that. And obviously she's trying to undo it so that like when she catches up to real time, it doesn't end with her son having to murder someone. So it was really, really interesting and just different than other mysteries, I think, because of the time loop and like sequencing that was happening. And also because of that, it was just following this one character's point of view, and she's trying to uncover different things, and I just really enjoyed it. Another thing that can make mystery tricky to like review or recommend to people is sometimes I'm really intrigued like 90% of the way through, and then the ending doesn't satisfy me, like whoever it is isn't who I wanted it to be, or the way it ends, like they do a twist that like I just don't love or isn't satisfying, like I said. But this one I really did like the ending, and I just loved following the character as she was trying to uncover all these different things in her life. So this was my favorite mystery for 2025. And then the last one, I didn't really have a category for, so I just said that it's honorable mention. But my honorable mention book from 2025 was Conclave. I was obsessed with Conclave. I honestly don't know what even genre it is, because it's like a little bit of historical fiction, I guess, because like conclaves are something that do exist in real life, and the cardinals vote on a new pope, and it dealt with a lot of like Catholic imagery and explanation of how that process works, which is a real thing. But then it was also dealing with fictional characters and sort of the politics of the church. That was just really interesting to me. And then there is just an ending that I loved. So this book was definitely one of my top from 2025, although I didn't know what category to put it in. I am also just someone who loves to learn about religion, and just been an interest of mine forever. So the actual like imagery of the book was so interesting to me, and the actual process was interesting to me. And then I just loved like how the different like priests and cardinals and people involved were sort of, you know, creating like gossip and being petty, which is just not something you think about happening like in the church. So that was just really great to read. And then of course the movie was amazing, and I do feel like the movie did a really good job representing the book, which I don't always feel like happens. I feel like oftentimes the book is like a million times better than the movie, but this movie was also really wonderful. So I would definitely recommend you check those two out if you haven't already. Thank you so much for listening to my 2025 reading wrapped. Can't wait to keep reading with you next year.